All right. Happy Tuesday to everybody. Thanks for joining us. It's 8 o'clock. We've started the show. Thanks for tuning in. A lot of you are here because we've got a fantastic guest today. A good friend, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, will be here in a little bit. He's standing by. Uh, Obviously, elections have started. Early voting is you know proceeded, and so if you've already voted, good for you. If not, I'm going to encourage everybody to go vote November the 8th on election day. I've got a lot of reasons for that. We'll discuss that at another podcast. Right now, we'll bring Alan West here in a little bit. But Trump was in Robstown this past weekend. I don't know if you all saw the rally live podcasted or just casted stream live. In fact, he reiterated what I'm saying is no more early voting is what he says. Everybody go vote November the 8th. And I think that's a fantastic idea. So once again, it's Tuesday. I want to thank you for listening in here. We do have another fantastic guest next Tuesday. We're going to have Sid Miller. So if you're interested to hear what Sid has to say, he's also helped us out quite a bit, and he's going to be on the show. So Sid Miller next Tuesday. If you're available, please tune in at 8 o'clock and like and share the podcast. If please, the only way we get out there is if you like the podcast and share it out. We're on YouTube. We're gonna. I don't think we can get on Getter, but we're definitely going to be on Rumble and all this other media. All that isn't going to be in the comments section before it's all over tonight. But I want to quickly just remind folks, look, the most important thing you can do in the next 2 weeks is you got to go vote. I'm advocating for November the 8th. Go make that happen. But if you've got to go early vote, then go get it done and invite all your friends to do that. We've got to get rid of this leftist, crazy socialist agenda that's being thrown out there everywhere. And that's what I'm going to have a great conversation with my friend Alan West here in a little bit. But let me introduce just a quick bio run for those of you that may not have ever. I'm going to run quickly through his bio, but I want to hit a couple of key points here. He runs his own podcast. I'm going to put this up here. If you've never seen Steadfast and Loyal, I'd advocate go tune in. He's got some great guests there as well. Fantastic show. Around here we like to share everybody's information on conservatives that are out there, providing the information you need to really get the news that you deserve. He's currently the executive director of the American Constitutional Rights Union and ACRU Action Fund. He's a constitutional conservative combat veteran and a former member of Congress. Remember, he was out there in Florida and they redistricted him out. We'll maybe have a conversation about that here in a little bit. But Colonel West is the third of four generations of military servicemen in his family. During his 22 years in the U.S. Army, Lieutenant Colonel West served in several combat zones and received many honors, including a Bronze Star, 3 Meritorious Service Medals, 2 Army Commendation Medals, 1 with Valor Device, and a Valorous Unit Award. 1993, he was named the U.S. Army ROTC Instructor of the Year. He is a former commissioned officer in the Texas State Guard as well. Remember, he was elected November 2010 to U.S. Congress. He formerly was the executive director of the National Center of Policy Analysis in Dallas, Texas, and former director of the Booker T. Washington Initiative for the Texas Public Policy Foundation. He's got a lot of accolades, folks. He's probably looking at me going, stop reading, let's start talking. So I'm going to do that. But he's got a great family. Dr. Angela Graham West is a fantastic lady. He's got 2 fantastic daughters. They're brainiacs, and I think he's got a son-in-law as well. Maybe we can chat about that. But without further ado, let me bring on my good friend, Colonel Alan West. Alan, how are you tonight, sir?
It's good to be with you, Raul, and congratulations on the show. And it's great to be able to share with you and the audience.
Good. Listen, I'm thrilled that you joined us. Seems like every time I call on you, you've been there. Let me show this to folks real quick. I showed it earlier. First time I met Alan West, we were in Del Rio, Texas. This is us on the border, and he can sport a hat, folks. I mean, not everybody can throw on a cowboy hat and look good, and so certainly, he's doing fantastic. We went out to Del Rio. I was running for Congress. And you've been there all along. I invited you. I mean, she said, let's just have a chat. What I want to do tonight, Alan, is talk about what's happening, what's happening in the elections here in Texas, and we'll dive into that. But I want to go first to what in the world is happening out in Ukraine, Russia. It
Hmm.
looks like, and I grew up in the 80s where you had to hide under your desk in case there was a nuclear holocaust, which looking back is kind of ridiculous. We're all going to get
Yeah.
blasted by this heat wave, but I guess it was just to make us feel like we were doing something to combat that. But
Hmm.
nonetheless, it went silent after Ronald Reagan because we, in the Cold War, we defeated the USSR. But now all of a sudden, you're pushing Putin to the brink of having to decide whether he's going to use nuclear weapons to defend his post. And it has a lot to do with uh, I'm going to call them liberal imperialists because they act a lot like neocons, where we're now forcing Ukraine to be a part of NATO, and of course Putin is rebuking that. What do you know? You're well connected with the army. I'm hearing they're out there training. They may be near, they may be doing something. I'm going to show you one quick picture before you answer. This is General Petraeus here. He's a civilian now, but he says U.S. may directly enter Ukraine war without NATO. That is, I mean, is it a national interest item to be in Ukraine? I'll turn it over to you. What can you tell us? What else do we need to know, and why in the heck are we even here right now?
Well, first and foremost, the thing that we have to understand is that weakness is very enticing. And so the last time you saw Russia and Vladimir Putin make an incursion toward Ukraine was to take over the Crimea. And that was during the Barack Obama presidency. And of course, Joe Biden was the vice president. And how did Obama respond? He sent them socks and MREs. Then after Obama, and of course, Russia established itself there in the eastern Ukraine and in Crimea, came Donald Trump. And Donald Trump did not take any of this, overt actions from Vladimir Putin, even though the thing going around was the whole Russian collusion hoax. And if you remember, Donald Trump attacked an airfield there in Syria where there were about 300 Russian paramilitaries of the Wagner group that ended up being killed in that strike. But you did not hear a peep from Vladimir Putin. And so there are dictators, autocrats, despots, whatever you want to call it. They respect strength, they respect might. And that's what Ronald Reagan talked about, peace through strength. But now you get Joe Biden that comes in, and what is one of the first things that he does? I mean, this debacle, strategic, operational, and tactical debacle in Afghanistan. And so Vladimir Putin sees once again this is weakness. Xi Jinping sees this is weakness. Iran sees it as weakness. We want to go and talk to Iran, the number one state sponsor of Islamic terrorism, about reinstating the nuclear agreement. So all of these folks sense this weakness, and I don't think that Russia and their military is really a paper tiger, and that has been exposed. And I think this whole threat about using nuclear arms, Vladimir Putin does not win in that. And especially now when people are realizing in Russia that they're losing. When you start to say, I need 300,000 conscripts, and young men in Russia to the airports, and they're going to the buses and everything to get out of Russia. That means that
Yeah, they're
the
leaving.
word has
They're
gotten back.
leaving.
They're leaving. The word has gotten back
Yeah.
home. So what we need to do very simply is what we should have done at the beginning. This is not about sending $40 billion or whatever, and we should have an audit of the money we've sent. But the Ukrainians asked for a couple of things, and that was MiG fighters and more surface to air defense systems, man-pass systems, man-portable systems. And I'm
Yep.
glad to see that we sent over the HIMARS system, which gives that range parity, and let them protect their own country. That's the position that we should take. And the reason why I think it's important is because I go back to the late 1930s. We cannot allow a dictator to just roll over a sovereign state. We can't sit back and allow that to happen. We can't allow the indiscriminate targeting and murder and the war crimes we see there of civilians. Is Ukraine a perfect place? No. Is Mr. Zelensky a perfect guy? No. But I think that we do have some values that we have to stand up for as a Western democracy. And if we did not show some type of response, then Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, who are the Baltic states, part of NATO, then they have to be nervous. Poland has to be nervous. But right now, we need to make sure that we show some semblance of strength. And I think that if we do have a successful midterm election, Republicans get the House and Senate, that they don't go in acting, as brash neocons, as you said, and we don't allow the liberal, progressive imperialists to take over. But we do this in a very sensible way, and we don't go in there unilaterally and get ourselves mired down in a flip version of how the Soviet Union got mired down in Afghanistan.
Wow. Yeah. A lot of information there. And look, what we're seeing is things like a lot of folks are trying to really get involved with Ukraine. And is there an off ramp? I mean, do you see it? Is there because I'm seeing General Petraeus and of course the neocons and what I call the liberal imperialists are trying to move in like they're hell bent on spending money on
Yeah.
the war machine. That's all part of it as well. These are the same folks, and you know this, Alan, that accuse Trump of if he gets elected, he's going to start War III. And
Yeah.
typical Democrats, right? The very thing they accuse all of us of is what they're doing behind the scenes anyway. Is there an off ramp? Do you see a solution here from your, just your strategic mind from
Hmm.
being in the army and leadership positions? Is there an off ramp? Is it too late? Because I'm telling you, the nuclear, the idea that there was a nuclear war or bombs are going to get lobbed. I mean, that's got a lot of people scared. Is there an off ramp here?
Well, I'm sure it would have a lot of people scared, and that's the whole purpose of what Vladimir Putin is trying to do. Remember, he's a KGB agent, and he understands psychological warfare. Now, I will tell you that the off ramp, you have to look at it in two different perspectives. If you're a Ukrainian civilian, if you're just Joe and Jane Sixpack in Ukraine, the off ramp for you is that you don't have Russian troops in your country. You
Yeah.
don't have Russian artillery that is shelling you and keeping you from living your normal life. That's their off ramp. Now, when you look at it from a global perspective, our off ramp should be to make sure that we can diplomatically, informationally, economically isolate Russia and Iran and China, because that's the new axis of evil, if you want to call it that. That's the new, Russia, not, but it used to be Germany, Italy, and Japan back in World War II.
Yeah.
That's the triumvirate that is coming together. And we need to understand as a world, as a global community, as Western democracies and republics, how we stand up and fight back against that. Because there's a global strategy out there. China, when you read their One Belt, One Road strategy, they're looking for not just regional Pacific hegemony, but they're
Yeah.
looking for global hegemony. Iran now is providing Russia with these kamikaze drones, and they
Yeah.
have troops there. So we should pull out of this nuclear agreement, and we should be supporting the Iranian citizens there. They're trying to topple the Ayatollahs because of the death of that young woman. And then again, we just need to restart our oil and gas industry. If there's an off ramp, restart our oil and gas industry, and let's start pumping oil and gas over there to Europe so they don't have to depend on Russia. And that undermines his coffers and isolates him economically. So I think that those are the things we should be doing. But Joe Biden doesn't have the gumption. He doesn't have the courage to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think he even knows what day he's on. I mean, he was falling asleep on the MSNBC interview just recently.
Yeah, he seems to be babbling all the time when we see him. It's you brought up China and Xi Jinping. Just there's a video where he's ousting the former president, and it looks like he, since Mayo, is now the most powerful, I guess, president, if that's what they're calling him
Yeah.
in China. And
Yeah.
that means he gets to go beyond the 2 terms that typically they have
Hmm.
for their prime minister slash presidents. It almost feels like China is into everything. And what I think is really to that Russia and China, because see, look, if Putin gets desperate enough, he's got to run to somewhere. I definitely China. I'm sure they're already having conversations behind the scenes of
Hmm.
of you know a united power, and because we're seeing it right, it's the new axis of evil, if we can say it that way. Seems kind of cliche from back when Bush said it, but these are the folks that we're looking at now on the world hegemon stage, competing against the United States. I think that the technocrats, the globalist elites, they went after this NATO. We're Ukraine NATO, knowing that Putin wasn't going to accept that. I mean, imagine Canada or Mexico being part of the Warsaw Pact. We weren't going to let that happen. So it just seems like, and
Hmm.
for anybody comments that I'm for Putin, he's a bad guy. He should have never. You have to
Yeah.
disclaim these things, when you're talking.
Yeah,
because or
I
else
know.
they come after you. And the answer is he's a bad dude. We don't got it. But we could have left that alone. But since 2008, back in Bucharest, when they announced, remember they came out and they said we want to make Ukraine part of NATO. They quickly said, "Well, we're thinking about it," and on started the clock of where we are now. You have President Zelensky who keeps asking for more money. We've sent him 40 billion. We've sent him another few 80 billion, and all we're doing is actually we're sustaining their pension plans. And I mean, we can't even pay for our own bills here. But
Hmm.
anyway, we'll be watching that, and maybe we can bring you back and see if we can get an update later because this is going to be very interesting. This is the new play in the world stage of Mon ends up on top. But so we can get back to what I want
Hmm.
to talk about a little bit here. Let's talk Texas politics. Man,
Oh yeah.
it's getting interesting out there. Now I'm just gonna not that you have to go to the Trump rally if you're the governor of the great state of Texas, but if Trump is still sort of the guy for the Republican Party, you would think you would be there. But we had Abbott was out in Florida, and now
Mm.
for anybody who's been under a rock, Colonel Allen West ran for governor and a few other good folks. What when we look at the race and we're 10 points. If you look at any poll here lately, everything is somewhere between 9 to 10 points. Abbott's ahead.
Hmm.
Shouldn't we be like 25 points? I mean, shouldn't this be a blowout against a guy named Beto O'Rourke? And I know you call him Francis, which is fine.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And but is that too close to call? I mean, 10 is people's like, well, he's going to win. No doubt. I mean, that's what we're planning for. Although I have
Hmm.
some inputs on that, but isn't 10 telling you something that, maybe
Yeah.
people aren't very happy about certain things?
Yeah, it tells me a whole heck of a lot. It tells me first and foremost that Governor Abbott does not have a solid control of the conservative base here. They're very concerned
Yeah.
about a lot of his positions. Look at the child gender modification issue. That should not be happening in
Oh
Texas.
man.
You haven't heard anything about all of these drag queen shows that are going on where our kids are being, paraded in front of, very perverse, venues and things of this nature. We don't have school choice. I mean, I was out in Arizona about 3 weeks ago. They just passed an incredible parental education freedom school choice bill out there. We don't have that here, even though we have the governor, the lieutenant governor, the speaker, the Senate, everything. We don't have those things here in Texas. So I think that there's a lot, and you continue to put Democrats as committee chairs in our Texas State House. So there's a lot of concerns there. Now, the other thing that it tells you is that when I go down and through Dallas, I live up here in Dallas County in Garland, but I see a lot of Robert Francis O'Rourke signs in places like Highland Park, University Park. And I
Yeah.
think that when you go down to Austin, you see it. When you go down to
Oh
Houston,
man.
Harris County, you see it. You go down to San Antonio, you see it. And what is even more disconcerting is that O'Rourke learned that he just can't depend on the major urban population centers. He's been getting out to the rural areas. The fact that Beto O'Rourke went to Alpine, Texas, and I know the chairwoman out there in Brewster County, she said they had like 500 or 600 people out there for O'Rourke. He was in Fredericksburg, Texas, had another 600 or 700 people. I looked at the paper.
Yeah.
So you have to be concerned in that if it's 8 to 10 points, for a gubernatorial race against this guy, Robert Francis O'Rourke, and all
Yeah.
the things he stands for. He wants open borders. He wants to take away our Second Amendment rights in Texas. Governor Abbott should be, like you say, 25 points ahead of this guy. So
Well,
that's a big concern.
and I got to tell you, you're right. Even here in solid red Medina County, west of San Antonio, for all of you who don't know where that's at, we've got Beto signs all over the place. And I don't know. I keep bringing this up in every one of my podcasts. It's a big tell. We were at the state convention. In walks in John Cornyn with his wife, and I get the chuckles because he got booed for the whole entirety of his speech.
Mhm.
And the reason I keep bringing that up, Alan, is because that tells me the base, which is the RPT, the Republican Party of Texas, and you know them because you were the chairman
Mhm.
for the Republican Party. They work their bleeps right off to put out these priorities, and it gets used like toilet paper by our elected
Yeah.
Republicans. Not all of them. I saw your podcast where Representative Slayton, awesome
Yes.
guy. Senator Bob Hall is fantastic,
Yes.
but they seem to be the only ones. Now, back to the booing of John Cornyn. I went there because the year before was sort of cybercast, and it was
Hmm.
it was because of COVID, and it wasn't like I got a thrill of John Cornyn getting booed, although it made flutter a little bit. What I realized, Alan, is the base is pretty ticked off now. And
Yeah.
and the danger and reason I bring up Beto is because if you're 10 points and the base sits out because Abbott, Patrick, and especially Phelan, who looks like is going to just forego the request of no Democratic chairman positions, he's going to anyway.
Hmm.
You've pretty much ticked off the base. And if they sit out on you in the next 2 weeks, I mean, it's lights out, don't you think? I mean, this is the danger
Hmm.
of not really paying attention to the conservative base. They look at a guy like me every time I run any kind of campaign, and it seems people think we're negative, but you have to expose these people. The problem, folks, for sure, and Alan, you know this, is Democrats. We're in trouble on the border because of Democrats, inflation, on and on and on. But couldn't we have done something on the border by now? Isn't Haven't we reached the red zone where the governor, and Carrie Lake, by the way, in Arizona, is
Oh yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I say, if she, when she gets elected, because we've got to declare it, right, and pray on that, and she actually declares an invasion and uses the full brunt of the Constitution, it's lights out for a guy like Abbott, because the his opponents are going to look at him and go, very much like Huff finds yourself, Article 1, section, and there's a part right there that we're not fully utilizing. If you don't know how to do that as in any governorship, this is why Biden is running everybody crazy. What are your thoughts on, I mean, you know, Carrie Lake compared to DeSantis and Governor Abbott? I mean, I think hands down, Carrie Lake is really understanding what the Constitution is here. I mean, and
Hmm.
nothing against DeSantis. I mean, I like everything he's got to say. He's a Harvard grad, but our guy he's a lawyer too, right?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, surely
Hmm.
we shouldn't be here, but taking off the base is, at some point, they're going to rebuke and just stop voting, because there's no
Yeah.
energy. I'm not seeing any energy right now for anybody to go vote for certain Republicans. How about you?
No, you're absolutely right. There's an enthusiasm gap that is out there, and that's very detrimental to you running. And one of the things that you and I talked about, and my counsel to anyone that's running for office, is you have to give people something to vote for, not something to vote against. And
Yeah,
right now, what most people, if they go out and they pull the lever for Greg Abbott, is because they're voting against something. It's not so much that they're voting for him. You still may get the W in your column, but you don't have that enthusiasm that is there, and people are not really behind you and looking at you as a leader. They just didn't, it's the same old thing, the lesser of two evils. And so when I go back and think about the primary season, when there were I think 14 or 15 different candidate debate forums and what have you for the gubernatorial contest and the primary, and the governor doesn't show up to any of them.
no,
To me, that's a little bit of arrogance. That's a little bit of disrespect to the conservative base out there, or just to the constituents. I mean, they'd like to see you out there, hear what you have to say. This is a job interview. That's what a debate forum is all about. So people can see how you think extemporaneously, and how you respond to the issues, and how you defend some of the positions that you have
yeah,
taken. And when you don't do that, I mean, that just takes you down a notch or two or three or four in some cases. And so I think that that's what you see happening here. So we've had one real mediocre debate between O'Rourke and Abbott, 1 hour, and it was on a Friday night. Now, Raul, what do most people do in
yeah,
Texas in the fall on a Friday night? Okay.
football, yeah,
Yes, Friday Night Lights. And so it's almost purposeful that
yeah,
they didn't want anyone to see it. And if I'm the sitting governor, I want to be out there on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night, right in the middle of the week, where there's nothing to compete, so that you can see me and you can understand how I want to be your leader. Now, talking about leadership, where we've gotten here on the border is unconscionable.
yeah,
The Texas state constitution even says that one of the duties, Article 4, Section 7, one of the duties and responsibilities of the Texas governor as the commander in chief of Texas Military Department is to repel invasions. It
right,
doesn't say that you put people on buses. It doesn't say that you allow them in. It says that you protect the sovereignty of the state of Texas and you repel invasions. That's exactly what we have. And so when our governor is sitting here, and I'm sure he can read the Constitution of the United States of America, and he understands that the President of the United States of America has abdicated his constitutional duty and responsibility. But yet the founding fathers were brilliant. They said in Article 1, Section 10, Clause number 3, this is what the state can do if actually invaded. But for whatever reason, he does not want to declare that. And the people living along the border counties, and you know this very well,
Yeah,
they're living in fear. They're living in
yeah,
terror. They're seeing their livelihood be destroyed. They're seeing their property being destroyed. They don't want to go out at all. People are breaking into their barns, breaking into their homes, killing their cattle, cutting their water lines. That should not be happening in the
yeah.
sovereign state of Texas.
Yeah, we, Kinney County, which you've been to plenty of times,
Hmm.
Sheriff Brad, and that's not a directly on the border. Well, it's got 11 miles of on the river, and it's sort of this geographical great place if you're going to be smuggling illegal aliens. And
Yes.
they're putting video after video after video, and you know, we, I ended up in politics because I went after a guy named Will Hurd because
Hmm.
he wouldn't say there's a crisis on the border, and yeah, I the debate is you brought that up, and I remember watching it. You're right; it's mediocre on a Friday, and and let me state this to disclaim this part. I'm a solid Republican. We're conservatives here. The notion that we can't criticize our own leadership because all of a sudden, oh, you're putting them in peril. Look, we're discussing what I think is the reality here. If you're going to piss off the base, and pardon the French, then that comes with consequences during these 2 weeks and then on November the 8th, because I see no energy to go out to vote for what we would all typically call rhino Republicans. And they're all over the place. And we've woken up to a reality again. I went to all the RPTs, the SREC meetings that are held
Hmm.
quarterly. I would show up every once in a while. Wonderful people, all of them representing large base of folks that are conservative that want to see Texas stay red. But they seem to fight their own elected Republicans every time about the priorities. And I'm new to the game, so I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense to me one
Mm.
bit. I can only imagine as the chair when you were there. And now let's go to Phelan here for a second, because I remember when he got elected, you popped out saying, they sort of did this behind the scenes. And is there anything that the base can do? Because we've literally put it as the number one of the priorities. No
It's the
more,
top one.
no more Democrats in chairman positions, because this is how the priorities go into bills and they die. I mean, do you think that happens? I mean, my bet is that they're going to overlook it and they're going to do whatever they need to ensure that it's status quo.
Mhm.
Will If that happens, the base is probably going to, I mean, it's just going to melt over, because I don't see, I don't see any other issue. This is where we potentially start to lose elections, and why I think even now, I mean, I won't put it past folks to abandon the top three. I think they're very cozy with the numbers. You think at some point the basis, all
Mhm.
even elected Republicans, and that's the threat about how we go from, red to blue, and in the last 20 years we went from blue to red. Thoughts?
Well, I don't think that you'll ever go blue here in Texas. The major urban population centers have gone that way, but Texas as a whole, I don't think will. But if you continue to, betray the base
Good
that
word.
got you elected, and
Yeah.
that's why I called Mr. Phelan when I was the chairman a political traitor. It set off the fireworks and everything, but I have to call it and say it as it is. Because if you are asking people to go out there and work hard, as we did in 2020, and make sure we kept a majority in the Texas State House, which was a target of Eric
Right.
Holder and Barack Obama, was to flip the Texas State House, and they didn't win anything. And we have that 83 majority, 83 to 67, and you go to Democrats asking them to vote for you as Speaker, and then you give them committee chair positions, you're a political traitor. And I think that right now, if you go back to that well one more time, you're going to find out that it's dry, and it's going to end up causing a huge turnover in primary electoral politics here in the state of Texas. And people are going to pay attention to the primary races
Yeah.
in 2 years here in the state of Texas. So I think that the arrogance of officialdom, which is what Marcus Tullius Cicero, the Roman statesman, called it, if they continue down that path, it's going to have long-term political ramifications for them, because
Mhm.
people are not going to sit back and allow the elitists of the Republican Party and some of these other people that say, you just get us elected and sit over there in the corner because we know what's best and you don't know how to do this legislation thing. You
Yeah.
don't know how to govern. They don't want to hear that. And again, that's very dismissive and disrespectful.
It is, and you know, I had I had a guest early on up a couple of weeks back. She's in the RGV, an activist. Flat out said, I'm not voting for Abbott, and I'm not voting for anybody who's not going to do what they say. That now she's not going to vote Democrat. I mean,
Yeah.
that's all there is to it. But that absent vote when Democrats actually go and see, they like their
Hmm.
evil politicians. I guess that's what that is. And we do have a lot of walkaway Democrats. My concern is always that they start to look at someone, and let's go big here, Liz Cheney for a second. I mean, they're not going to walk away from Democrats to someone like Liz Cheney. They seem to look alike anyway,
Yeah.
and probably why a guy like Donald Trump down in the South really hit hard with constituents, with voters. And I remind folks that even in 2020, Henry job, maybe barely, but he kept it. Gonzalez, Filemon Vela kept this. I mean, so we have this notion that Trump's Republican Party is attracting that. And as you notice, I just transitioned down to the South here. Um,
Yeah.
but so we have this large group of folks that are moving to the Republican Party. I used to tell folks it's the Trump Republican Party, but they still at the congressional, maybe even local county judge levels are still voting Democrat. He's
Hmm.
out now. He lost his election, and now you got Kevin McCarthy running down into the South. We've got what I think is three candidates that are Republican: Myra, Monica de la Cruz, and Cassie Garcia, who's being
Hmm.
sponsored by Ted Cruz.
Hmm.
And you know, we yet to be determined. I really hope they all win. I really do. I mean, I'm rooting for all of them, but we're watching Myra already voting for amnesty, and Monica de la Cruz is really tucked in there with Kevin McCarthy. These are people that I personally don't trust because they're the folks that just sort of sat on their hands as we had what I thought was a great president, trying to do, mind you, not perfect, but trying to do the things that he needed to do, while our Republican elected officials in Congress sort of watched him just get derailed. But now back to South Texas, uh, you see this, what everybody is saying, Hispanics are coming to the Republican Party.
Hmm.
Surely the planks of the Republican Party are godly, they're conservative, they're Christian. Well, they've been like that for 40 years, folks.
Yeah.
But until Trump, they start to move over. But now Trump is out, and I see sort of this gaslighting, is what I'm calling it, of the Hispanic population to candidates that are chosen by the rhinos. I think they have still a possibility to win, but then we get more puppets. And I'm not denigrating those three young ladies. That I think it's fantastic. You know this. Anytime you jump into this cesspool of politics, you're going to get burned. It's not going to look the way it
Yeah.
looks. But what are your thoughts? I mean, do you, do you think all three will win? I mean, we yet to be determined. It's too early
Mhm.
to tell, and there's no energy. Back to little energy. Now, Myra Flores, I think, has a lot of energy. They really do like her down there. I'm not sure about Monica. Cassie has been, she's a fantastic candidate, by the way, as well. Ted Cruz is helping her out. Uh, but I think if we're going to get a win, it may be Monica de la Cruz. That's plus 17 in the Joe Biden, Myra Flores, I think it's CD 34. I think it's that
34 for,
34.
yeah.
Even as bad as Democrats are, the South Texas still favors its local politicians to be inside the Democrat party. If it was Trump running in 22, but he's not, they might go
Yeah.
his way. So what are you hearing? Anything down, because you did a lot of work as the Republican
Mhm.
chair, a lot of good work that I think we're starting to see flourishing. But you know, can we get them all? You think?
Well, that's the important thing. I saw a an opportunity. There was fertile ground, and we just need to plant the seeds, and then people can come along later to continue to make sure that the seeds grow. And one thing I kind of want to disagree with you on. I don't ever want to get focus on a person,
Yeah.
and that's why when you say Trump Republican Party, I want us to be focused on principles and policies and
Yeah.
values, regardless of an individual. Because if the individual goes away, your principles, your policies, and your values should not go away.
Yeah.
So I think that is what has really attracted a lot more the Hispanic community down in South Texas toward the GOP. But we've got to continue to engage and continue to, take that from that upper level at the federal government down to the state level and down to the local level also, so that they understand is those levels are mutually supportive of each other, and talk to them about running as constitutional conservatives, not just an R, but as constitutional conservatives.
Yeah.
And having served in Congress in Washington, D.C., I can tell you it's very enticing. When people start coming down saying, I'm going to be your friend, and here's some cash, and I'll come down and do an event for you. Well, something comes along with that.
Yeah.
And so I would just encourage the three young ladies, the Latinas, the candidates you talk about, who I think have anywhere from a 85 to a 99.9% chance of winning.
Yeah.
And it will be a huge story, coming out of this election, just the same as it was in 2020, flipping the Rio Grande Valley and Zapata County. They've got to protect their reputation. They got to protect their brand. They have to protect their principles and their values, and don't get up there and get enamored with Washington, D.C., because then people will come back and say, we don't know you. We don't remember you. We don't
Yeah.
recognize you. You have gone up there and you have bought into their line, and you've forgotten us. So always continue to be grounded and be rooted. That would be my best advice to them.
Yeah.
And if you're good, the people are going to get you reelected. You don't
Yeah.
have to worry about someone coming down and throwing a fundraiser for you. The people will make sure that you get reelected. And so that's the critical thing, because as a freshman member of Congress, they're going to get told you got one job to get reelected. And all you need to do is to do
Yeah.
what we say.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
No, it
All
is.
you
You're right. You're right. Yeah.
all you need to do is what we say, and vote as we say, and we'll help you get reelected. Uh, Now, I was the guy that broke that mold,
Yeah.
because I was up there, and as a freshman member of Congress, I mean, I raised $19.6 million just being me, and standing up and being true to my principles and values. And that really unnerved a lot of people in the Republican Party and the leadership, and that's why they redistricted me out, because you can't have a guy that can be a freshman and an independent member. And it didn't matter that I was willing to go all over the country and help the GOP team. They just wanted to make sure that I was under their umbrella. And I can go out, I can deal with the rain. I used to be a soldier. I can handle that. I don't need to have a steak down at
Yeah.
the Capitol Grill downtown. I could have an
MRE.
MRE. I'm just as
MRE
happy.
is good.
Absolutely. Yeah, MRE is good,
I'm
man.
Air Force,
So
folks. We don't do MREs very well.
no, he needs a 5-star restaurant. So
I'm
no,
not
but
gonna disagree one bit.
but that's the
Yeah.
counsel that I would give to them, is to stay true to your principles and values, stay true to your constituents, and then go back and start building that farm team.
Yeah.
Build up the next generation of school board members, city council members, county commissioners, local judicial positions, and state house and state senate members, so that you have a consistent pipeline of good, strong constitutional conservatives throughout South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley for the future. That's what you should be looking at doing as a leader.
Yeah, and for the record, the polls show, the one that was gonna have the biggest problem was gonna be Myra Flores. So if anybody
Mhm.
wants to know, just some data points here, but looks like she's pretty much neck and neck right now with her opponent. I think Monica De La Cruz is doing pretty well. Cassie Garcia, I don't hear a lot of, but
Yeah.
she's worked with the Republican Party before, worked for Ted Cruz. So,
Mhm.
and I know folks that know her. She's pretty solid young lady. So
And
we wish her.
Cuellar is vulnerable. Cuellar is vulnerable because,
Yeah.
if you're, why can't he have the courage like a Tulsi Gabbard and just say,
Yeah.
I'm out of here?
Yeah.
Because he's pro-life, he's pro-Second Amendment, he's all for border security, but then he screws up by coming out and saying, one of the first things I'll do if I get reelected is vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. Way wrong answer, Francis.
Well, that's because he's looking for the money. I'm 100% sure he's looking
Oh
for the
yeah,
money. But you're
oh
right.
yeah.
Even when I was a candidate for Congress, I mean, nobody was throwing millions at me, and I tell folks, look, I beat my opponent. I just didn't get the win. And but a lot of it had to do with we wouldn't sell out. I mean, the bottom line is we were looking to secure the border and help reindustrialize this country because
Hmm.
South Texas has just been, I mean, gutted.
Yeah.
All jobs went to Mexico, it went to
Yeah.
Canada and Thailand and China and everywhere else. And oh, by the way, that's happened to the bulk of the United States, which is why, and I'll say it for the fourth time on my podcast, I cannot get a Ford truck within a year because all these chips, the manufactured chips.
Yes.
I mean, we become a used car America. You got to go and order something. I guess they're trying to turn us into Tesla, where I'm supposed to be a happy millennial and wait for my car a year out. Well, I need the truck now, folks. So anyway, I'll stop complaining. Look, South Texas,
Yeah.
I think, is going to come in for these young ladies. I'm curious to see what the makeup of the vote is. But again, when Trump was 2020 and he steamrolled the vote, the
Hmm.
answer was nobody lost their jobs down there. So I'm going to be very curious to see what happens. And you're right. And typically I catch myself. I now say I do like a guy like Trump because of everything he did. But I typically try to address it as a MAGA America first because those are the ideological things that
Yes.
are there, and those are and Trump being very non-ideological, actually, to be honest. He's a very business-oriented guy. He just sort of tried to tackle everything. But anyway, that's South Texas. Let's go back to the legislature. What is the one thing you want to see that the legislature tackle this time? I know there's a slew of, but if you had to put it down, I know the borders, the taxes are important. Quickly, that when they were having to debate O'Rourke and Abbott, and my friends over there on Eliminate Property Taxes, they've got a page that's got like 60,000 people on there. They supported us during the Senate run.
Hmm.
I bet all of them about fell over when they heard, Abbott saying, we're going to eliminate, and he meant school taxes, which is property taxes. They end up as your property taxes. And uh, Beto responded, well, you've had 8 years to do that. So
Hmm.
there's a slew of things like the border. Why aren't we using the Constitution? Mutilation of our children. Why aren't we doing that? This is the crazy part, Alan. It took the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade to tell us what we've known for 40, 50, 100 years. In Texas, we could eliminate abortion. We could do anything we want because that's really what they said. Here, send it back to the states. We kill
Yeah.
60 million babies in the process. I mean, and all they said was Texas can be Texas. I mean, this is this is what kills me. But what is the one thing what would you like to see happen at the legislature if nothing else happens?
I think that the civil rights issue of our generation, our time, is educational freedom.
Yeah.
And I believe without a doubt, if you want to talk about what we can do now that affects our future generations going forward, it is about making sure that parents are in the driver's seat when it comes to the education of their child and not being relegated to sending them to failed state schools. And when I say state, I mean government schools where they'll be indoctrinated. Look at the report that just came out talking about how we are failing. As far
Yeah.
as education right now, fourth and fifth graders not able to read at grade level, not able to do math at grade level. Here in Texas, 67% of fourth graders don't read at grade level. And we're in the lower, I think, 5 or 6 states when it comes to education. And I'm tired of seeing Texas not take a lead on this. I mean, Arizona has. So I think that this is a critical thing that we need to do. Yes, we need to have the property tax relief. Yes, we need to stop the child gender modification. No more Democrats as committee chairs. But those are things that, fix something in this near term. But if you want to talk about what's going to make a difference for the future of Texas and the United States of America, it's about education freedom. And we've got to undermine the strength and the power of the teachers' unions here in the state of Texas.
Yeah. Wow. It just seems like everything's on fire here. And, it appalls me that under, and I'm a Republican. Under Republican leadership, we have these issues we can't seem to tackle, and
Mhm.
but I'm hopeful. I really am. I mean,
Me too.
nobody should vote Democrat, and if we got to start criticizing our own leaders, which by the way is we ought to be able to do that without being chastised as renegades or super right wing conservatives or whatever the words that they
Well,
use.
well, Raul, just remember when we were in the military, and if we screwed up, we got our butts chewed out.
Yeah,
That didn't mean that our superior officer hated us. It didn't mean that he was we were un-American. We weren't a good soldier, a sailor, air marine, a coast guardsman. It just meant that we screwed up, and he wanted to see us do better. He
yeah,
wanted to see us improve, and he was going to hold us accountable for our actions. And so what we're doing is we're sitting up and we're talking about better accountability, better responsibility from the people that we have given our electoral patronage to. And again, it is arrogance, pure arrogance, to think that, once they get elected, we're supposed to just shut up and let them do whatever
yeah.
we want. They want. It's called the consent of the governed. That's what's in the Declaration of Independence. And if we get to the point where the people are their consent as the government is not looked towards, then we're being ruled. We're not being governed.
Couldn't agree with you more. Real last question, fun question,
Yeah.
to lighten it up here. And but favorite gun. I see you. We're trying to run a podcast. By the way, your podcast is fantastic. We did
No,
advertise
thanks.
it out there, and but if you had to shoot or grab one gun because that's the one you're gonna use, which one is it?
Well, if it's my handgun, I would probably go for my Glock. I think it's the 23, which is the 40 caliber. Really love that. It'll knock you down. If I have to go to my 1911, my 45 cal, that's fine. But when it comes to a rifle that I like, I have a real nice 300 blackout, and it has a noise a suppressor on it, so you don't even hear it. So
Oh,
that would be.
is that the I saw? Is that the one I saw you on video that you had to wait a few months for? Right down in Beale, somewhere down there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's down just south of Rosenberg,
Yeah,
and that is a 9 yeah, a fully suppressed 9 millimeter
that is. It
carbine
sounded
that
great.
I'm still waiting on. Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, but
You're gonna
if
have
I
to.
really
You're
want to
gonna have
reach
to
out and
put.
grab you,
That's a plug for whoever that is. You're gonna have to let us know who that is because I remember that video. I saw you shoot
yeah.
that. I was like, I got to get me one of those. I mean, that's all there is to it. I'm old
Oh,
school.
sure. I'll tell you his name. His name is Colonel Alan Orr. He's a retired
Oh, I
Marine,
thought
oh
you were gonna say
06.
Alan West, but you must have a gun
No,
shop
no,
somewhere,
no,
man.
man. No, no, I wish I did. But
Yeah.
no, Colonel Alan Orr, and he has Orr Tactical, ORR. So
Okay.
dial him up. And I mean, he built that thing from scratch for me. And it's fully suppressed. It's an incredible weapon.
It sounded great. I'm old school, by the
Yeah.
way. I'm so old school. The Smith and Wesson 908. It's slick. It's
Ah,
thin. It's old. But and more importantly, in the event that the wife ever had to use it because it's got a decock on it, and
uh-huh.
because what wife can't push back and bullets liable to
Mhm.
fly off, but 908 folks, Smith and Wesson, the old 3000 series, you can't go wrong. I'm not a fan of the Glocks, but certainly of that one that Colonel Orr has made. We're gonna look him up. Alan, any parting shots? Yours for 2 minutes. What do you got?
Hey, look, it's so important. I know that Raul and I just had a great conversation about Texas politics. And as I said, so goes Texas, so goes America, so goes America, so goes the world. And so I want you to get out there, get engaged, get involved, especially the Christian body of Christ. We can't sit this out anymore,
No.
because when we look at what is happening, remember in the first thing that they shut down in COVID, it wasn't Walmart, McDonald's, it wasn't the liquor stores, marijuana stores, wasn't even abortion clinics. It were churches. So we need the body of Christ to come out and vote. And afterwards, let's make sure that we hold our elected officials accountable to do what they said that they were going to do. And if not, then you start looking at developing that next generation of constitutional conservative leaders that will go in and make sure that Texas stays a strong red state.
And there you have it, folks. Great advice from my good friend, Colonel Alan West. Absolutely thrilled you're on the show. Thank you so much for being here. God bless you. Keep us posted.
Thanks.
We're all watching
I will.
your social media as well, and go
Thanks.
look him up, folks. Steadfast and Loyal, great podcast. If you haven't seen
Mhm.
it, he's gonna be on
Hey,
YouTube everywhere else.
I tell you something, Raul, before you go.
Okay,
Do you have an outdoor shooting range down there in Medina County?
we do. We have a couple out here.
Let's put together an event next spring.
I'm in. There it is, folks. Oh Lord, that's going to be a competition between Army and Air Force. You understand that, right?
Yeah, but
So
let's just yeah, we'll just invite everybody out there. We'll get short distance pistol targets, rifle targets. We'll get everybody out there, and
it's
I'll
like a
bring
real
down.
Air Force, like a real Air Force colonel. Can we go indoors? You think? Can we go do
Oh, here we go.
indoors?
Here we go. Here we go. You want a
Anyway,
catered lunch too.
oh my God, that's a fantastic idea, actually.
All right,
Okay,
brother.
talk to you later. God bless you, and we'll
God
see you
be
soon.
with you.
Okay. Okay. Thank
Take
you.
care, Rob.
All right, there you have it, folks. Alan West. You know, it was meant to be fun, informal, and informative, as it always is. He's fantastic, folks. I wish I had the savoir faire of how he does and speaks, and he has all these wonderful quotes. Yeah, please get out, go vote. Lieutenant Colonel Reyes is advocating you wait till November the 8th to get it all done then. But if you can't do that and you've got to vote here soon in the next 2 weeks, go get it done. Go vote, and let's put these leftist socialists, out of business as soon as we can. This is the next 2 weeks to do it, and let's rally around our elected Republicans, the ones that are won the primary. Let's get them out there. There are a few folks. I've said this before here in CD23. We've got a Democrat, a Republican, and Frank Lopez who's running. Uh, because he's the real. So go check him out. All your races, go look and make sure you vote. Principles, your values. Look for those folks, and let's get them elected and get going from there. Again, thank you to Colonel Allen West for being here. Next week, next Tuesday, folks, we're going to have Sid Miller. He's committed to being out here. Now, I know we're in the early voting, so we're going to have him. It's going to be fantastic. And can't wait to have him. If you've never heard him speak or talk, he's well informed about what's happening in Texas politics as well. Want to get an update from him, see how things are coming along. He's out there campaigning like everybody else. We're going to try and get a couple other folks out here. We're trying to reach out to Carrie Lake as well. I know she's busy running for governor, but if we can get her on board here, we would like to ask her a whole lot of questions. Seems to be she's the one who would win and declare an invasion in Arizona, which is the total change of how we take on the federal government, which, by the way, constitutionally, we are able to. So again, once again, thanks to Colonel West for being here and all the support he's provided to us. For all of you out there, I want to thank you for listening in. That's going to be the end of the podcast. If you have comments and they're not terrible, put them in there. Not just kidding. We will take constructive feedback anytime. We're doing everything we can to bring in great people that are on knowledge about Texas politics and maybe even the global environment, like Colonel Allen West. Next week, Sid Miller. I'll be here next week and the following weeks. We might take a break during the Thanksgiving holidays, but that'll be it. That's going to be it for right now. Leave your comments, anything. We'll be on Getter, Truth, and a few others. We're going to announce that as we go forward. For now, everybody have a blessed good night, a wonderful Tuesday evening. Have a great week. Get everybody to go vote. Go vote, go vote. You can't complain. All is well. Bless you and have a good night.